So welcome to the Stigma Podcast. Today I've brought on Kameron with T.A.C.O. What's T.A.C.O?
Yeah, so T.A.C.O stands for Team Awareness Combating Overdose. It's a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to combating accidental overdose deaths, specifically in college students. And we have a research division that provides education to college students and makes like science-backed education digestible. And so that's through our Instagram. And then we also do a lot of harm reduction materials. So like you guys do Narcan, we also give out Narcan and do Narcan trainings. And then a big thing for us is fentanyl test strips. Yeah. And so we give out fentanyl test strips to hundreds and thousands of college students a year for free. And so that's also a big thing for us is the cost barrier between things. And so we want to make sure that college students there's never a cost barrier between choosing to test your drugs or not.
Right.
And so, the big thing for us is making sure that all the money that we make is going straight into fentanyl test strips so that, all students who we work with can get them for free. And, there's never that barrier and, we can make testing your drugs and much more common practice.
Yeah, accessible, easy.
Exactly.
It should be as it should be.
Yeah, so just like bringing awareness to it and then making sure it's accessible to everyone.
Of course.
Is the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so what college are you kind of based at right now?
Yeah, so I'm a senior at USC studying biomedical. I'm getting old. But I'm a senior at USC studying biomedical engineering. Mm-hmm. I joined T.A.C.O when I was a freshman. And I'm from Irvine, California, born and raised, and now at USC. But we're a national nonprofit, so
That's so sick.
And my position in T.A.C.O is the CEO. So I manage our entire organization, the nonprofit, and then we have different chapters within different schools.
You're the CEO?
Yeah.
Did you found it?
No, I did not found it. I'm not the founder.
Oh.
So when I joined, it was actually funny story. It was like 10 people. And they were like technically a club at USC.
Okay.
And I joined as we called it a distribution intern. So our distribution division does like fentanyl test strip distribution and just passes them out. And so like when I was a freshman, I did not even know what fentanyl was. And I'm guessing a lot of people didn't know what it was, which is why like our job is so important. But I joined as an intern and everyone else was seniors in the organization because it was founded by 6 different USC students because there was double-digit overdose deaths in a year at USC. And, some people very close to the founders passed away. And so they decided to bring light to these kind of situations, and they're all neuroscience majors. And so they basically started like this research kind of organization that took information about drugs and made it accessible to college students, especially at USC. And they were able to make it so that it would be very understandable to just regular people, and they could be more educated about the drugs they're taking and just different drug combinations, its effects, how different ones work in your brain. And just, the kind of education that you don't get typically when you're growing up. No one really tells you about that stuff. And so that's our job.
Yeah, like some people are prescribed things, go out to drink, and it affects their body in a certain way.
Yeah, they just have no idea. And I've gotten so many questions from my friends over the past few years about if I'm taking this with this, what happens? Will I be okay? And I'm able to luckily provide them with an answer now that I've been super educated about this stuff. And we've been an organization for a little bit over 3 years now. We've expanded from 10 people when I joined to over 300.
That's awesome.
And it's been a crazy ride, and it's been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life.
For sure. So you got what kind of brought you into I kind of want to do this?
Yeah. So one of my good best friends, freshman year, he was a senior, and he was part of T.A.C.O, and he was one of the first members of it. And he told me about one of his best friends growing up passed away because of overdose, and how big of a cause it was to him. And he told me this would be a great opportunity to get involved with. And so, me as a freshman wanting to try everything, I tried it out. And what I did was I just sat on a table in the corner of like our village, which is like where a lot of students pass by, and I was just passing out fentanyl test strips to people, and I got a lot of weird stares and a lot of like really weird questions, because you're basically saying like, excuse me, do you like participate in drugs? You know someone who does, and if they do, please take one of these fentanyl test strips so you can be safe. And back then, even in 2020, when I was doing this, early 2021, there's a lot less coverage about fentanyl, and it wasn't like as big of a thing. So it was
definitely getting more coverage now,
which is great.
Yes.
I mean, obviously it is because unfortunately it's become so prevalent within Los Angeles area.
Exactly.
But I think it has brought a lot of awareness to the cause, which has helped us a lot. Because when I was a freshman, I got so many like weird looks and weird questions and judgmental stares from doing what I was doing. But as time has gone on, like we've reduced that kind of stigma within USC, and like the community is a lot easier to talk to now. So now whenever you see like one of the stands will have like, the club we manage, USC T.A.C.O, has stands twice a week to pass out fentanyl test strips, like in the most concentrated areas of campus. And, everyone is super receptive of it. Awesome. Everyone loves it. And everyone knows about T.A.C.O now, which is like, that's exactly what our goal was. And that, that's why it stands for Team Awareness Combating Overdose. We just want to bring awareness to the cause. And
you can't do it alone.
You cannot.
You need a team.
Yes, exactly. Which is why like it's been so nice. Our team is amazing. We have over like 280, 300 members now across the country. And it's been amazing. Like we've grown so quickly, almost too quickly to be able to manage, because at the end of the day, we are all volunteers. None of us make money from this kind of thing, and we're just all college students too. So we all are full-time students doing this. But the reason people are involved is because they love it, and it's made a profound impact on their life. And it's made a big impact on my life too. I grew up in a very like sheltered household, I'd say. Yeah. Like, my parents did not talk to me about drugs or alcohol at all before I got to college.
Me as well.
Which is like why it's becoming I feel like it's become an issue almost. I think the lack of the conversation. That was my big issue growing up. Like there was no conversation about anything. Yeah, no, it's like a taboo. It's like, like people who use drugs, like they're bad. And it's just like, it's just like it's such
bad, no good.
Yeah, it's just like such an ignorant way of going about things. Yeah. And, I do think it's kind of a generational divide, and a generational like kind of conversation that I hope to change this next kind of cycle.
For sure. That's how we do it, breaking that generational thing. Like
exactly.
We're the ones
breaking the stigma.
Exactly. Like having that conversation, even with like generational trauma, you know what I mean? Like our parents did their best with raising us with what they knew and what they grew up with.
Exactly.
But it's like now we're exposed to all of these things here now, and now we get to pass it down.
Yeah. And like even like fentanyl wasn't really a big thing like back in the 80s or like when our parents were growing up. And so I completely understand why like people are pretty ignorant to what's happening, because it's honestly mind-boggling how lethal and how common it is around our community. And it's definitely like that kind of thing that you need to raise awareness, because then people will die. Like it's like raising awareness and educating people is so vital to like the health of our community. And 100%. So that's our whole goal. And, we're working every day since to help raise awareness. And, we have people who are super dedicated to the cause, and that's what keeps us going.
So what kind of was your experience going into college with seeing drugs and alcohol and the stigma surrounding that?
Yeah. So it was honestly like a pretty big culture shock, because like I did not drink much in high school, and I was not around drugs at all. Like I said before, like my parents were it was very like a sheltered kind of thing, where it was like a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. So it was like, people use drugs are bad, and you can't drink alcohol and stuff like that. And so it's just like going into college is definitely a culture shock, and seeing that around me. I'm honestly lucky nothing too bad happened to me when I was younger, because I was so uneducated about it. And that's what I fear for people coming into college, and that's why our education kind of thing is so important, so that people know what they're taking and know what they're going to be surrounded with. Because just saying no is an ignorant way of going about things, and sometimes people don't have a choice.
Yes, that exactly. Just saying no. Yeah. It's a very ignorant way of going about it, because that's what I grew up with. I don't know about you. Wait, how old are you?
I'm 21.
Or we're a year apart. We grew up with DARE.
Yes, exactly.
Just say no. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's
like about the actual education
mm-hmm.
of like what you're going to be exposed to and what this drug does and like the fatality of it.
Exactly. And I think like our biggest thing is neither encouraging or condemning the use of drugs, but instead educating people so they can make decisions for themselves.
Exactly. I feel like that's also a big thing we do with Fuck the Stigma. We love recovery. We love if you're in recovery, but like we're bringing awareness to those in active addiction and alcoholism, because it's not just this thing that they have a choice in. But also if they're willing, encouraging them to get in there into recovery.
Yeah, no, it's so important to increase that conversation, because, you know, people can feel, you know, isolated, especially when that's happening. Like, you know, people in my family have dealt with addiction, and I'd say because of the way that people go about that conversation, it can be incredibly isolating. People don't speak up, and thus they struggle more. And I think being able to increase that conversation, you know, accepting that is a part of our society, and sometimes people don't have a choice, I think is incredibly important. And, you know, it's all about increasing conversation, making sure people are comfortable with sharing when they're struggling with something.
Exactly. So yeah, with harm reduction, it's a huge thing that people are going to be using drugs regardless.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we practice harm reduction all the time, wearing a seatbelt when we get in the car. And there's this huge stigma with harm reduction. When we do it every day, it gets so stigmatized when we bring it into harm reduction with addicts.
Yes.
So that's when it becomes this huge controversial issue, but it's just people are going to be using drugs at the end of the day. People are going to be using needles. Some people are cool with like naloxone exchanges, but not needle exchanges. So it gets like there's all these lines that people don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, people are going to be using, and if they are going to be using, let them be informed and do it safely.
Exactly.
So yeah,
I think it just comes down to education, to be honest. Like, you know, when people are educated and understand like the kind of issues that are going on and like what harm reduction is in the drug community, then I think they become a lot more receptive to it. And as soon as they're like informed about like what's happening, it makes the conversation so much easier. Because I've noticed like speaking to college students has been super easy because they know about what's going on, and they see it too. But then when you talk to like their parents or like the older generation, they don't really see it as much, and they're like, what, kids aren't doing that? And it's like, I'm like, you know, 70% of college students use illicit drugs. I mean, will use an illicit drug.
Even I wonder why they see it that way and kind of don't believe it. Maybe it's because like, oh, you're a college student, you're getting your education, you're doing really good in life. But even at like your top class universities, Harvard, for example, I don't know many, and like they're doing it too. You know what I mean? I'm sure they're doing a lot of coke or something.
No, it's so prevalent, and that's the issue though, is that like people are the older generation is very ignorant about it happening, and so you know, I think just informing them and educating them about it, then they become a lot more receptive to it. And, you know, I've dealt with this with like professors at USC where they're like, no, like, you know, I know my kid, like he's in high school, he's not doing any of that stuff. I'm like, yeah, he probably, like, you know, a lot of them are. And it's a tough, like, it's a sobering fact to come to terms with. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, if you don't accept it, then you're putting other people at risk.
Exactly. Coming to acceptance that this is what people will be doing. Yeah, because like I'm sure when I first started using drugs, my parents had no idea and thought I was a really good kid until it became blatantly obvious I was on drugs.
Yeah,
because it got out of control. I think it's just like this wishful thinking that they want of like my kid would never do that.
Yeah,
but I really
understand that. Like I do understand. It's just like at the end of the day, when you hear all these news reports about all this stuff happening and all these statistics that come out about it, you know, it's acceptance is really important.
Yeah, and
to get over that stigma.
And the numbers are only rising.
Yeah.
Yeah, with breaking stigma, it is that conversation and the information, because, for example, some people don't understand mental health, so they stigmatize it like, dude, just get over it.
Exactly.
That's why there's that stigma, because they don't know what it's really like. Maybe they just haven't experienced mental health issues, or they're in denial that they have. You know what I mean? It's like
exactly.
It's this like pyramid thing of stigma and like breaking it down. So with T.A.C.O, you guys do naloxone training and like the fentanyl test strips. I actually don't know too much about Tell me more about fentanyl test strips.
Yeah, so they're these test strips. We get them from this company called Dance Safe. They're another big harm reduction company. And basically, they're able to detect like minuscule amounts of fentanyl within drugs that are tested. And you can get results within, I believe, 90 seconds. And it just takes a very minuscule amount of the drug to be tested, and then it'll tell you. So it's incredibly efficient and reliable. And so we deemed it very necessary for our college like kind of focus and just people in general. So we'll have different distribution stands. We'll do them at concerts. We'll do them around campuses. We're currently at 24 different schools across the country, and we have 8 different chapters. And I believe we're in 10 states. And so, we're just trying to increase our bandwidth within where we're able to give out fentanyl test strips. And one of our biggest thing is partnering with these delivery services. So there's these delivery services called like Duffel, Handle, and Snag. They're these different delivery services that are involved with these college campuses. And basically what happens is they're basically online grocery stores where students have this app, and they can order fentanyl test strips. Like we ship them fentanyl test strips, and they can order fentanyl test strips for like 10 cents a pop because they have to put a price on it.
Yeah.
But 10 cents, and within 10 minutes, someone will be there to deliver it to you.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so that's been a big thing for us, how we've expanded, because we'll just expand with these other organizations that are, doing these delivery services at these colleges. And, we've been the number 1 product actually. At
really?
Yeah. Which has been great. Like,
does that mean you pop up on the homepage?
Yeah. You open up one of the homepages of these delivery services, and so our biggest thing is just like making sure people can get them whenever they need it for free, and then also within 10 minutes, I think is as quick as you can imagine.
That's really, that's
and
awesome.
So it's been great. And then we also offer shipping, like we'll offer people to bulk order strips from our website, and we can ship them to wherever as well. That does come with a cost, but the ones we pass out are for free. Basically our motto is that if you're able to pay for it, then please do. But if not, we will give it out for free, because we just want to reduce that kind of barrier. And because all the money that we make goes right back into fentanyl test strips, because, in order to support these 24 different schools, it does take a lot of money, but
for sure.
All the money that we do make goes into it. And so it's
true fucking teamwork.
Yeah,
with fucking T.A.C.O.
Exactly.
Like using like these delivery apps and then connecting with the other schools.
No, it was honestly such a good revelation we had, that we've been able to partner with these organizations, because it's made life so much easier and made it so much better for us to expand. And then we also have chapters at different schools who will do the same kind of thing, as we'll ship them test strips, and then they'll have distribution stands around their campuses and just pass them out for free. And those are chapters that have like varied from like 20 to 80 people, which have been amazing.
Yeah.
And the way chapters have been started has been crazy too. Like, we had one of our friends had a taco bucket hat at Coachella, and some girl from University of Arizona saw it and asked about it, and she ended up starting a chapter, and now it's our most successful chapter. So it's insane. It's insane how like harm reduction has brought people together so much, and it's honestly like such a great cause to obviously, I mean, it's such a great cause to come together for. And, it's been proven, like, all of our team keeps on growing every single year, and, our chapters keep on growing as well, and there's no stop in sight.
Yeah, that's fucking sick. And this is all volunteer work.
Yeah.
What? That's so awesome.
Yeah. No one gets paid on our team. Everyone's doing it because they love it and are passionate about it. Everyone has a very personal connection to it now. And, it's been amazing.
People who aren't college students can be a part of it.
So our main target audience is college students, but yes, you can join if you're not a college student. But like I'd say a lot of our members are, because like our main focus is the college age. So like in order to expand within colleges, I think it's important that we do have college students,
of course,
or just people in the college student age range. Because like once I graduate, I'll eventually stop, because I want to make sure that, our leadership is actively at like USC or like at a college campus, so that they have a really personal connection to like what's happening, because
for sure.
that at the end of the day, that's how we've been able to expand so much and how we've been able to deliver our messages so clearly, because, you know, it's a peer-to-peer kind of connection. Instead of, you know, higher up saying like, don't do drugs, we're saying, I know you, like this is my community. And so here's what you can do to make it better. And, you know, I think making sure that we have that kind of connection has been something very beneficial to us, like an angle that a lot of other organizations don't really have, because, you know, they're usually like a much older, or they don't really understand what's going on at colleges. And so a lot of organizations ask me to help out because like I understand what it's like.
And you're there in that age. Yeah,
exactly.
That's cool though. That's very interesting. So like you think when you graduate, you'll kind of like still support, of course, but let another college student take over.
Exactly. That's awesome. Of course, I want to be involved with this forever, but I'll pass it on to someone else.
Yeah, so I agree with you with like being in that close age range, because I've recently been going to speak at high schools. Like I was like 19, going to speak at high schools and educating students about mental health and my experience with substance use, because it started for me in high school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it helps a lot being like them knowing that you were just there.
Exactly. No, that's amazing. I think, you know, making sure that it's so much easier to connect to people who are like closer in age to you, and also knowing that you have a similar upbringing, and like, you know, saying like, you know, I was a college student, like, I mean, I was a high school student like 3 years ago. Like, you know, it's like so easy to be able to connect to people like that, instead of, you know, being at someone who's experienced so much more and is a lot older.
Yeah.
I think it's like, you know, being that kind of age range is so beneficial to delivering your message.
Yeah. Also with DARE, wasn't it like a cop?
Yeah. No, it was a cop.
It's like this cop telling you, don't do drugs.
Yeah. And like, it's
this fear thing I feel like that they use to kind of scare you into not doing drugs.
No, literally, like he's like, it sounds like he'll arrest you.
Yeah, like I'll arrest you for possession. Yeah, or something.
It was not. I don't know who thought of that. It wasn't the smartest. Like,
and it was funny because at my school, the cop was like, he should have been a hired comedian. He was more funny than like really educating us. We just liked him because he was funny.
Yeah, it was. You know, we were all so young, so I had no idea what to think, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think there's studies even shown that people who went through DARE are more likely to use drugs now than people who never went through it. And so it's just like, because like when you're a kid, if someone tells you no with no other context, like, you know, you're gonna be interested.
Yeah.
And so I think that's our biggest thing, is just like being able to educate people about what they are. And
I really feel like this is gonna make a good change, because I feel like there are other organizations like Fuck the Stigma and T.A.C.O that are trying to bring awareness, and you know, there's a lot of us, and we're kind of trying to change whatever DARE fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think, you know, Fuck the Stigma I've been just reading through it, and I think just being able to get rid of taboos in general is just so important, especially for people who are struggling within it. And I think because it's so easy to isolate people, saying like, you know, you'll never relate to that, or like that has nothing to do with you. And it can be incredibly isolating for people going through stuff. And I think just increasing that conversation makes people be seen a lot more.
For sure. Exactly. So with our stuff, it can get very controversial. And that's when it's like, even I get scared. I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm about to post this. And all like you know, there's obviously going to be hate and the people who disagree, because the stigma, every time I see a hate comment, it's usually like something like, I'm like, dude, that's the definition of the stigma. That's why I'm posting this.
No, exactly. There's no change can be made unless there's backlash a little bit. Like, you know, then there's nothing to change. You know, like we've had plenty of backlash, and like from a lot of people. I mean, I'd say not within the college sphere, but within like the older people.
What have you heard?
Just because like they're like, oh, you're like a drug club, like you just want people to do drugs, and I'm like, that is not what we do at all. It's educating people. Even my parents were like, oh, so you're part of like a drug giving club? And I was like, no, that's not what we do at all. Like,
do they kind of understand now?
They do. Because I've spent tireless amount of hours with T.A.C.O, and I've told them all about it, and you know, luckily they're a lot more receptive to it. I don't know how much they love it still, but you know, it's
there's a sense of acceptance.
Yeah, there's a sense of acceptance, and you know, it's been great. I think being able to continue that conversation, especially with like my parents and my family members, has been great. Like, I still think a couple of family members don't entirely understand what it is, because you know, they're even older, and so that's even a tougher conversation. But, it's been a lot better recently because, people are starting to understand how big of an issue it is.
Yeah.
And I think once they see it like on the news and, they've seen us on the news and just like seeing that kind of stuff has been really beneficial.
Have you guys been on the news?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's sick.
We're on NBC, ABC. We like on Snapchat too. But yeah, we've got a good amount of press. Yeah, it's been great.
No, but yeah, it's really hard with, obviously the older people, they're kind of more set in stone in their ways and their thoughts and processes and opinions. And like with me, for example, I'm very young and impressionable. Like when I have people come on the podcast, they're telling me their opinions and telling me their stories. I'm like, wow, okay. Like I'm kind of sitting there forming my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like very, been set in stone in their ways for like 50 years maybe.
No, exactly.
And yeah, it's hard. But it's like we also are the up and coming and we will be the future. So it's why it's really important that, we're educating the youth as well.
If I'm being completely honest, I kind of enjoy it. Like being able to talk to people who just like are like have no idea about what we do and like what the issue is.
Yeah. Because
just to see their face after they realize like how big of an issue it is and like what kind of work we're doing, which is a problem that just I had no idea about. It's just insane. And I think like, it's because college students are around it already, so they're very receptive to it. They understand it, like you said, very open-minded about a lot of things. But I think it almost feels better when you're able to convince or like tell someone about this kind of thing that they just had no clue about and just like completely flip their minds about
fulfilling.
it. Yeah, it is. It's amazing.
Yeah, it gives you a good feeling.
It's a tough sometimes, but like I think at the end of the day, like if you're able to have those conversations, then what you're doing is good.
Exactly.
And that. If you're able to convince these people who've been set in their ways for so long, then like what you're doing is like worth it.
So what's kind of your overall understanding? You said you had family members who struggle with addiction. What's kind of because you're not an addict or an alcoholic. That's why I think it's also really cool that you do this, because you're not somebody who personally struggles with it, but you see the effects of it and the distress that it causes people.
Correct.
So yeah, what is your overall understanding of addiction and alcoholism? And you said you also had family members that struggled with it.
I'd say like my understanding is that, sometimes people don't really have a choice when it happens. It's substance use disorder is like something that, it's something not to be treated lightly. And it's something that I need to watch my words when talking about for sure too. I think growing up, I just had really no idea about it at all. And now that like I've been around it, I've been able to experience it, and I've been able to talk to people about it very candidly. I think it's been really beneficial to myself, and better my understanding of that. Like sometimes it has to do with their mental health. It's something they can't really control a lot of times, and it's all about being able to seek help when you need it, and being able to talk to people about it. Because I think a big part of it is feeling isolated when you are experiencing these kind of things. And, that's the worst, is when that's when people are most likely to, I feel like, relapse, is when they feel isolated and unsupported and, they had no one there to help them out. And so, that's been a big thing for me, has been able to increase that kind of conversation with people who are struggling and making sure they're seen, they're heard, and that, if they need help, we're there for them.
Yeah, especially supporting people when they need the help. I mean, it's almost like when they want the help, because a lot of people do need the help out there and aren't seeking it because they don't feel ready.
Yeah.
It's really an internal decision to seek recovery.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't get that. I feel like that's one of the big misunderstandings, that like, oh, you can just stop.
Exactly.
Why don't you just fucking stop?
Yeah.
And that's why people are so against harm reduction. You're just helping them get high. For example, I'll tell you, I had somebody come on the podcast to inform us on harm reduction, and he'd said he'd overdosed 28 times.
Oh my gosh.
And guess what? Now he has like 10 months of sobriety.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it took him 28 times, and all of those times were reversed by naloxone.
Wow.
Yeah, like people kind of saw it as, you're just telling people they can just keep overdosing and they can just be saved. You know what I mean? Like they saw it that way. But what the point of view I was trying to put out there was, it took him 28 times to find recovery. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's how much it took him, like how many times it took him. So everybody's timing with finding it is different. For me, I found it when I was 18 years old. Yeah. Some people find it a lot later in life. I got fortunate enough and like held on to it and grabbed it and wanted it enough that like now I have over 2 years sober. You know what I mean? So it's different for everybody. And it's also really hard to describe to someone what it's like internally to struggle with addiction. Like, I wish I could just put like a simulator on your head.
Yeah.
And you would know what it's like, but it's almost, I'm doing my best to describe it, but even then it doesn't do it justice.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, like, what was it that, like, what made you go when at age 18? Was it, did you find resources? Did someone reach out? Or
it was the consequences.
Okay.
So I had enough. I got 3 DUIs in this time span of 11 months. And my thing was Xanax, like street Xanax, so very dangerous, and alcohol. So I was drinking on top of it, everyday blackouts. So my thing was avoiding the issues. Like my first DUI, okay, I'm just going to black out again, avoid that, pretend that didn't happen. Same with the second. And then when I got my third, I was like, fuck. Like, I'm going to have to, I need to stop. And I'm going to actually have to deal with this shit, all these legal stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'll go seek help just so it looks good for my court cases. So these DUIs were a fucking blessing because I came in to rehab with like an open ear.
Yeah.
And an open mind. And that's when I was like, whoa. Took me a while, but I did identify with being an addict. And that's honestly one of the first steps.
Yeah, no, I think it's great that you were able to latch on to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, especially at such a young age, and I think, that's so important when people deal with it going like even later into life. That's when they're really good. I mean, that's when a lot of struggle happens, and that's when it gets really dangerous too. And it's just like, I think increasing those kind of like resources that we have to support these kind of things is super important. And then it's also like the stigma kind of thing, like being able to talk about that with someone else is incredibly important. My mom's a psychiatrist, so she deals with like speaks with a lot of people who are suffering from substance use disorder. And one thing she's told me is just that, like, everyone's different, and so it's like, people deal with it very differently, and you have to be receptive to that. And so it's like, people are gonna find their way, one way or another, but you just have to be there for them. And because some people respond to one kind of help differently than someone else will.
Yes, exactly.
Right? People will see it like people won't latch on to it sometimes. Some people will see it as like imprisonment, and it's just like it's very different. And so that's why it's so unique, and that's why it's a very difficult thing to deal with, because everyone's different and everyone has a different experience with it, and you never know what someone's going through. And so it's just like important to be there for people who are suffering from it, and then to just make sure that things are accessible to them, so that when they are ready to seek help, then they're ready.
Exactly. My experience was I started to feel much more free and not so dependent.
Yeah.
And you said you were also, what were you majoring in?
Biomedical engineering.
So what is that?
It's like medical devices that like MRIs, CAT scans and stuff like that go in hospitals. And it's also like drug development and like pharmacology stuff. And so that's honestly what I hope to get into, is like drug development and pharmacology, kind of with similar, not exactly similar to T.A.C.O, but just like the kind of like, drug kind of angle of like medicine and different kind of science. But yeah, a lot of our team is neuroscience majors, so they all like that's why they do a lot of research on like drugs and stuff like that, and are able to give it to like college students as accessible information, because they're super knowledgeable of that kind of stuff.
Well, to my knowledge, I believe that like substance abuse and addiction, like it's almost, I'm sure they've linked it to like genetics, like it can kind of go down in genetics, but they kind of don't really know, like they don't have there's not a cure for addiction. There's not just like this medicine they can give you and you're no longer gonna want to use, like there's what is it called, have you heard of naltrexone? So naltrexone is this drug that's supposed to prevent cravings from like alcohol. Cool. And I think also, I just know for sure it's alcohol. I'm sure it helps with something else. But the thing is, like, it can be in pill form, or you can get it injected into your butt. But people just stop taking the pill, and then can just stop taking the pill, and then boom, they can, start drinking. Also, it's this thing where, like, if you drink on it, you feel really sick. Yeah. So it's kind of fucked up that we've come up with this thing, like, oh, if you're taking this medication, if you drink on it, you're going to be really sick. So that's like kind of discouraging you to go out and drink.
Yeah.
So there's not like this really good solution that we have yet for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only solution that people have found is really like a spiritual remedy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like constantly, like spiritual maintenance.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there's a lot of trying to research going into this stuff, especially now with like opioids and fentanyl being so prevalent through our community. I think there's a lot of research going on involving that stuff, but all that stuff takes such a long time to be developed. And so, like, yeah, I think the most pressing issue is just awareness and being able to, increase conversation about it, because a lot of that stuff is probably pretty far from being into everyday use at this point.
Yeah. So with the neuroscience, what are they aiming to do? Like be some sort of doctor?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are pre-med students. Yeah.
So I've heard also that people going to get their doctorates or whatever get a very low like amount of time learning about addiction. And that's a huge thing that doctors have to face is people coming in for getting like prescription medication. Mm-hmm. Like people go doctor shopping. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think it's kind of fucked up that I think their education is only like a few hours out of...
I've heard the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's really cool that there's people in neuroscience going in, like having this information about
and
addiction.
I think working with us has been incredibly like inspirational for them too, because they get like research experience, but then also they get experience with like things that they could be super passionate about in the future. And I think that would be the future, is those like neuroscience people, neuroscience doctor people who know about addiction and know about, substance use disorder and know about the fentanyl crisis and all that stuff like that, and know about harm reduction. And I think being educated about that when going into the kind of medical field can definitely bring a lot of good change to like those kind of systems. For example, we partnered with Children's Hospital Los Angeles recently, and they're giving out harm reduction kits to a lot of their patients now, which has been great. We had someone reach out to us, and they had a little grant that was working with a nonprofit, and they saw what we do. And we reached out saying that, like, this is the perfect kind of opportunity for you guys to get more involved in the harm reduction community. And so now they're able to pass out our fentanyl test strips to their patients and give it to them, which is both bringing awareness for us and and harm reduction as a whole, which is amazing. And I think just like increasing those kind of harm reduction materials and conversations within hospitals is especially important, because that's where people get prescribed stuff. That's where people are treated for overdoses, and it's honestly the prime place to be at. That's so fucking true.
Yeah. And then from there with harm reduction, you're kind of really mainly in it with somebody who's actively using. That's why I also think it's just like, obviously we're not sitting there like trying to push it on them, like go get sober. But whenever they're ready, you can be that point of contact of like, oh, you want help? I know exactly where I can refer you to.
Exactly. Yeah. I think just knowing and being able to understand what they're going through and being around it before, I think helps a lot. Because, I think a lot of people who potentially aren't around harm reduction just won't really understand it or really know what the scope of the issue is when they're entering the medical field. And that is of the utmost importance because of how many people they're going to be involved with that are going to be involved with, substance use disorder or are struggling from something. And I think just having that experience through like our college education has been great. But then at the end of the day, that also comes down to colleges, like increasing their drug education. But that's our job right now. But I think
right now it's kind of like an extracurricular type thing.
Yeah, but I think in the future, we're hoping that colleges will become a lot more receptive to it, because that has been a big obstacle of ours, is like getting around the college. That's why we're a national nonprofit. We're not associated with like the college now, with the college we started at, but we have a chapter there. But it's just like, we want to expand out of it because we realize it's very restrictive, and it's hard for universities to accept that drugs are being used at their school, or they just don't want to admit it.
Maybe because it probably just won't look good.
Yeah. But then at the end of the day, students are dying because of it, and so it's their fault. I mean, it's not their fault, but I mean, it's happening under their watch, and it's because they're not educating their students about it. And that's the big thing for us too, is just like, that's I think what the future of our organization would be, is that, you know, we'd get so big and be impactful enough that colleges would realize that this is essential to their school. And I think that's been pretty realized at USC now, that like, you know, all the fraternities and sororities are all trained in Narcan, all have Narcan. Everyone has fentanyl test. I mean, everyone in the Greek community has fentanyl test strips on them, and everyone knows about T.A.C.O now. And I think just increasing that kind of thing at different universities would be incredible. And then that way, because, you know, colleges will have a lot more resources and money than us. And so being able to have them, you know, provide harm reduction materials to their students, like, you know, put them in dorms, you know, give Narcan training to their students, give drug education training that we didn't get beforehand to their students, like as a requirement. All of that would be incredible for the organization, also the future of people, because, you know, they've learned in college and they'll know that stuff for the rest of their life, and then they'll be able to help out someone who doesn't know. And so that's what we hope is the future of
the goal of colleges themselves integrating it with all the money they make.
Exactly.
Do you know any of the numbers and like statistics off the top of your head by chance, with like either like the fentanyl overdoses, or also if you could give us some information on the drugs that you should just not mix?
Yeah, so I'd say for fentanyl overdoses, well, first of all, like overdoses leading cause of death for people ages 18 to 31, I believe, in the United States. And so that's what we're tackling. And then in the past year, we've saved over 1,000 lives because of our test strips and, you know, our education, which has been great. I don't know the exact statistics on fentanyl specifically, but the numbers are insane. I think it's more than a lot of the wars like that we've been a part of.
Damn.
Yeah. I don't want to like misrepresent that. I don't want to say an exact number because I don't know exactly. But yeah, and then I'd say like for combinations, I'd say like the most common is using cocaine with other stuff. And so like, you know, it depends what you're taking, and also like some people are on antidepressants, and just like, that's what our whole Instagram is about. It's like, you know, we'll have a post that's like cocaine and alcohol, like what are the effects like when you combine and mix them, what are their effects individually, and then what happens when you mix them. Like, you know, you could take less, I think it's like less cocaine is lethal amount if you take more of that. And so it's just like, it's very interesting to read about. And it's incredibly informative too, because like, you know, a lot of them are very common, like kind of drug combinations, like for example, weed and alcohol. And it's just like, you know, it talks about like, you know, if their effects can work against each other, or like, you know, what it does to your sleep, and what it does to your mental health and that kind of stuff. And so it's just like, it's really great actually. Our design and research team do an incredible job of like promoting it and making it very accessible to our students. You know, we have a lot of followers now, and so it's just been really nice.
So you guys are doing really good.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And you know, we're always trying to expand as much as we can. We have like a TikTok team, and we have LinkedIn, Twitter. We have all like the kind of platforms that we can do, and just like you guys, you know, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Instagram, like that kind of thing is just. I think our organization's line in that way a lot is just like, any press is good press. We just want to be bring as much awareness to the issues as possible, which is at the end of the day exactly what we need in our community.
Exactly. And I'll put all the links in the description.
Oh, thank you.
And then back to the combinations. Yeah, it's tricky, especially with when you mix an upper and a depressant. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because with me, you know, like benzos and alcohol, you're really not supposed to mix. And that was my combo. I loved it. And like I was at risk for seizures, and just it was all bad.
Yeah, benzodiazepines, they have even test strips for them too, because there's like they're like roofie drugs as well.
Yeah.
And that was also a big issue at a lot of our colleges, was like people's drinks getting roofied, and so that was another angle we used to tackle. And we also have a lot of information about it as well. But at the end of the day, it's like there's an infinite amount of issues with all that stuff.
Yes.
because like, you know, people mix all the time, and I think just being educated about it and, you know, just having that little tad bit of information, you don't have to memorize all of like the information we put out, but I think just like having that little recognition about like, oh, like I remember like what happens when you mix these two things, and you know, this, you might want to be careful, and just like being able to educate other people about it as well is super important, especially as like, that's why I worry for like my younger siblings, because like, you know, they're either entering college or about to, and it's just like,
they know about what you do.
Yeah, they do now. But I'd say like if I wasn't involved in T.A.C.O, I'd be incredibly worried, because just it's not that kind of conversation we have with our parents. That like they grew up the same way I did, and I think they were less educated about it going in, and that's why I felt it was really important to, you know, kind of spread that message and tell them all about it and be very open about it, even if my parents aren't exactly receptive to it.
Yeah, I think I think it's crazy that a lot of people sometimes don't appreciate that open and honest.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's like uncomfortable, kind of. Like,
it's uncomfortable, but I so greatly appreciate it now. I mean, sometimes even I'm a little hesitant to be too vulnerable, but it's like now I'm at this point where it's just like second nature to me, and I feel like I almost overshare things. Yeah. But it's more helpful.
No, right? Exactly.
The being unashamed about talking about this, and we shouldn't keep all these things hidden in like in a shadow.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely serves a good kind of like role model kind of like feature, that if you're able to easily talk about the kind of things, then people will be able to open up themselves a lot more, because, you know, if we're able to talk about things, then people will realize that like, you know, it's an okay thing to talk about. And, you know, I think just increasing conversations is so important, and I do it every day now. It's just, you know, I'm always talking to people about this stuff, and it's been great. Like people who don't even know me will come up to like my friends and say like, oh, I've heard about like T.A.C.O, like, you know, what you guys are doing over there is so great. And, you know, it's something that's been very much needed, which is incredible. Like that's all I've really ever wanted within this organization.
Dude, you're killing it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely killing it. And how can people support T.A.C.O?
Yeah. So actually we have applications open now for our like general body and our directors within the nonprofit. So people who want to join can apply. And also just plugging our Instagram, T.A.C.O Inc. On Instagram, then T.A.C.O Inc. _ on TikTok. And then, you know, just being able to support like TACOinc.org on our website. We have, you know, donations for people who can afford it. And then also just like looking at our all the places we're at, different colleges, you know, across the country. If you guys need, if anyone needs fentanyl test strips, like we have so many different locations across the country that, you know, you can pick up from. And yeah, I think just being aware and being able to support us is what's great. All the money that we make goes straight back into fentanyl test strips to people who need them.
Sick. Well, thank you so much, Kameron, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Dude, I appreciate it. I've learned so much.
Thank you.